Hello, hello. This is Jessa Francis, and welcome to the Empowered Path podcast. Today, I have a guest with me, and my guest today is my beautiful mother, Desi Spears. She and I were just talking recently because episode 3 was actually quite a bit about her and her story. And if you read episode 3, you will know that it was titled 150 Self-Help Books. And I have told this story a few different times because as a creative writing major and someone who has a degree in English and has been writing books and writing my entire life. Books obviously are a huge deal to me and hold a lot of weight. And I'm actually in the middle of writing a self-help book for myself. And so obviously, my mother reading these books impacted me significantly. And after listening to that podcast, she had a few things to say, and I was like, oh, we need to continue this conversation on the podcast. I need to share this with my listeners because it's powerful and it's beautiful. And I know that it is also very, very helpful for other people who may have also, been reading some self-help and working on personal development and feeling both, the endorphins and the dopamine and everything that comes with, there's some significant oxytocin, some feel-good hormones that we get from reading these empowering books. But then we start feeling really discouraged afterward when we can't really claim what it is that we read, and we feel stuck even more so, and then we start beating ourselves up even more because we want to make all these promises to ourselves and to our life, and we get all this information about how to better ourselves and how to make our lives better, but then we feel like we can't actually follow through. And that's when things like with myself, and I know my mother had this same issue, is like self-loathing sets in. This feeling of like I'm a failure and I can't figure this out. And why can't I implement this? And then there's also this extreme loneliness. And so I wanted to bring on Mom and to invite her to tell a little bit about her story, which is what I shared, but from her point of view, and so that you can really get a clear picture and a better understanding of what I meant to share in that podcast, because it's truly, I think, very, very important for all of us. It's, once again, for all of us that are really reading these books, listening to these books. How do I implement this stuff, And so her story started with Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. It was the very first book that she ever picked up. And she was just saying this to me, but I think it's so beautiful that she was sharing. We were in northern Indiana, which was a town of, what was it, like 8,000 people? Yeah, this tiny little town, and she's feeling lost and like she doesn't know what to do in her life. We don't have the internet at this time, right? So I remember we had all the encyclopedias in the house because that's how we got the information. So now we're in this new age. There's all these resources, there's all this information, and it's available to us at all times, right at our fingertips. But back at this point in time, in the very early 90s, like 1990 probably, we didn't have that. And so Mom went into the library in this little podunk town, and guess what they had? but Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And so I just want you to go ahead and start telling us about the impact that that book had on you. You dive into your story.
Okay, well, hello everybody. At that point in my life, I was really unhappy. I was working a lot of hours. I had gotten to where I was a heavy equipment operator, and as most young mothers do, we feel guilty for working. And I had to work a lot of hours, and my relationship with my husband was rocky and hard. We were having, we all had our own baggage that we were trying to commingle, and there's always problems with that. So I was just in a state of turmoil because I felt like such a failure, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong and why I didn't feel better and all that. So I happened to go into the library and I found that book, and it really just it was a light bulb. It was just like somebody had turned on a spotlight, and I realized so many things that my perceptions weren't quite right, and it gave me hope.
I loved the way that you described it earlier. You said it was like you had been living in a cave and just walking around circles inside a cave, and then all of a sudden you came out.
And then I walked out of the cave, and it was like a whole new world, and there was all these things that I could choose. I didn't have to stay in that one place. I didn't have to be unhappy, that I had a different choice. Before I just felt like I didn't have a choice. I had to go with whatever the people and the circumstances that I had. I thought that was it for me. And it made me realize that I didn't have to. And it made me feel empowered. I'm going to use your word. I was going to say brave, but it made me feel empowered. And it made me look at my job differently. And since it wasn't the time of the internet, and I couldn't find my people because nobody else had read the book. Nobody else knew the thing. The light hadn't turned on for anyone else. So I did have one friend that kind of supported me somewhat. But other than that, I just had to turn to books. And every book built on the other one. Some started to contradict a little bit. So you can pick and choose what you'll use. And then it just gave me the language to talk to myself and have the conversations that you have in your head with yourself in a whole new way.
Yeah. So, I mean, Awaken the Giant Within was the first, but then, right, I titled it 150 self-help books because I remember you saying, for some reason, that's what stuck in my memory, was that you had read 150 self-help books in like that 1 year, because it was like you picked up that one and you were like, oh my gosh, there is hope. Right? There is hope. Right. And so you picked up that one, and then next thing you know, you're picking up another and another and another, and they were helping you with all of these different areas of your life, with your job, with your marriage and relationships, and trying to navigate a relationship, which is so hard to do, right? Mm-hmm. And then you were just learning the power of these books and the ability to to change, right? To take your life in your own hands. But then, like you were saying, like no one else was reading these books, and there's no internet, there's no like ability to like really connect, and the people that were in your world, dad and the heavy
Construction
equipment
workers, you're not
construction
going to find a
workers.
lot of people that are looking inward. Let's just say,
Yes. So everybody else is, and so unfortunately, that ended up in a way making things even harder, right? Because, and I, as anybody who has had a, epiphany, whether it's a spiritual awakening or just a more conscious idea and visual of yourself and your life and in the world around you, become more conscious and you can see things more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, we look out into the world and the mass majority of us are still in the dark. They're still running around in the cave. And then there's the very few of us that are, awakened and moving towards, more understanding, a better perception, more hope, more love, choosing the love over the fear and all of those things. But it feels like so few of us. It feels like so few of us, and it makes you feel even more alone, right?
Still today, none of my personal friends have read the books that I read. None of the people that I hang with are into these things. So it's not something that I share with anyone really but you and a very few. There might be one or two that go, oh yeah, I've read that. But most of the time not. I mean, people they don't.
Yeah, and
They're not
I feel
seekers.
like that's changing a little bit, but not so much, because thank goodness for Audible, right? We can
Right,
listen to these books, but most people
right.
have a
And
really hard time sitting down and reading.
the thing is the internet shows me that there are people out there that are seekers and that are trying to learn and grow. But the Carol Dweck growth mindset, uh, it it's that's what life is to me. It's growing, it's building and going from one, and you go through different stages of life. What you is super important to you when you're younger is not what's important to me today. And
Yeah.
like what we were talking about, one of the books that was made a big deal was Stephen Covey's 7
Seven
Habits
Habits.
of Highly Effective People, and all his books. I mean, having that mission statement and just realizing the biggest thing was realizing the me, myself, and I, this voice inside my head, and then, and it was like Eckhart Tolle, he said he was sitting on a bench and he said, I just can't live with myself anymore. And realizing, well, who's me and who's myself and who is this I,
Yeah.
So, but most people that this dialogue, they think that's them.
Mm-hmm. People are
I
not
mean, and
separating out the
realizing that the
ego.
dialogue that you have inside your head is not you, and it's just, and then when you start, and then I got into meditation a long time ago, and I thought it was this one thing, but realizing that the main thing is just the meditation is noticing what it is you do say to yourself and how many times. And then you start realizing, okay, I've said that to myself 45 times today. And making that realization, you're going, oh, well, that's not me.
Yeah, I think Joe Dispenza said that
And
people
then
think the
going
same
into
thoughts
the,
90% of the day.
and
Your
learning,
thoughts are
I mean, people don't understand that the science behind all this that is available today was not available when I was reading Awaken the Giant Within. The science wasn't there behind all of it. So I was still like, oh, that's new. You know, everybody would say, oh, you're reading those new age books. They call them, and it was like I was, but I read Richard Bach's Jonathan Livingston Seagull back when I was in high school. So, I mean, and that was my favorite book, and that was a bestseller, but it was still kind of woo-woo new
yeah,
ages thing. The Road Less Traveled. Oh
right.
my gosh. I can't even begin to remember all the books I've read. Now, if you think that first year was 150, guess what?
I know, I'm sure it's thousands. But I remember that mission statement. You had it, you printed it out in multi different colors. I think there was like the
Yes.
H sense was a different color and it was framed in the
Mm-hmm.
bathroom. And I remember reading it for myself. And I think it was, now that I think about it, it was such an empowering, like a powerful, conscious parenting tool because I was reading it and I was thinking those things, even
Mm-hmm.
though I was nowhere on the level. Obviously, I'm a young, very immature teenager, kid growing up. But at the same time, it did. It absolutely did, and made a huge impact, obviously, or I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But your story, this particular story is what has really made me want to start the Empowered Book Club because,
Right.
I have the Empowered Path and there's the fitness and the nutrition and the yoga and all of that is amazing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there is no, taking care of your body if you don't take care of your mind and
Right.
vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm sitting here with a stack of books, and I don't want to read them by myself. I want to talk to somebody about them. I want to workshop them. I want to make this stuff stick. I don't want to just,
Mm-hmm.
gobble it up like a potato chip and put it on the shelf. I
Right.
I where it's just going to collect dust and I don't truly make the most of it because, Dr. Nicole LaPera of How to Do the Work, James Doty, I mean, they're writing this and putting this out there with their whole hearts, everything that they've learned and
Mm-hmm.
sharing it because they want to spread more love and compassion. And to be able to truly absorb that and to absorb it in community where you
Mm-hmm.
can, write out your mission statement, share it, bounce ideas off, connect. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much beautiful power in that because there's this study that has been done about people that grow up in extreme trauma, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be extreme trauma.
It's
All of
just
us have trauma, right? But the people that are able to deal with their traumas and come out on the other side and still succeed versus the people that don't, right? And there's been a lot of study like, why are these two siblings that were, raised in the same household and one of them is, never been able to, is addicted to drugs and never been able to pull themselves out and their life is like in shambles. And then this one that was able to get out of the situation, go to school, thrive in life and make the most of it. Like, what is the difference? What is happening? And what they have found is that it all came down to whether that person felt, whether they got it or not, but they actually had to feel like they were seen, heard, and loved.
Yeah.
That they felt that they had support. They felt like somebody saw them, heard them, understood them. And that's right. That's the power of community, is when you step in and you find that one friend, that one mentor, that one coach, that one teacher, that one whoever that
for me, it was my books. I mean, because I didn't have anyone that did that other than my mother. She did in her own way, but she couldn't. She was injured herself and could only love me as much as she loved herself, which was, on one hand, she loved herself. On the other hand, she was the most self-sacrificing woman I've ever met, So, but, on your previous podcast, you said that, the one thing it brought me was joy. Well, it did a little more for me than that, because it did, I started changing my attitude, and because I did that, I think, I was on a bus on a school trip with my son, and I sat down next to Renee Muehlhausen, who ended up, and I was talking to her about, my life, and she said, well, you should come and sell real estate. And it empowered me to actually go to night school after my job, get my real estate license, walk into that real estate office, and sell real estate for 3 years. And it was right at the cusp. It was right at a time when you needed me more than ever, because you were 13 and you were the effects of having two working parents that were both up in their head and not being a good parent to you were, it was starting to show. I could see the trauma that you had, and I knew something had to happen. And it made me realize that I could do it, and I did it. And I was a construction worker. I was shoveling and running heavy equipment. I wasn't writing contracts and going out to lunch with bankers and dressing nice and putting on makeup. I mean, that was a whole new, actually wearing nice shoes and getting off work and being able to go out to dinner. I mean, it was just another night and day. I went back to work in
that was a
construction.
significant impact on my life.
And all of a sudden I was able to be involved and show up at school and take you to your speech and debate and do all the things, and I did go back to work in construction, but I started making choices to where I would work less hours. I stayed close to home. And, I really felt like I kept staying more engaged with you guys as much as I could. I still made mistakes, but
I mean, now you understand that those mistakes were opportunities to learn, and that was where you grew, like
right.
the seed has to break the earth open to be planted, let alone to grow.
So the self-help books, it made all the difference in my life. It's just that now you don't have to, here's the deal. Whether you enroll in the empowered path or not, the empowered path will speed the progress. It will stop you from having to make the same mistakes over and over, and it will. So it's like, all those self-help books on 2.0, because you'll have your community and you'll have your support system and you'll have anything and everything that you need that I didn't have. I didn't have the support. I had to go to work and listen to a bunch of men, be condescending and the misogyny and all that. And I just put on, I always say you were a good actor, but I think that I was, I stepped out of my car and I was a different human. And then when I got back in my car, I put back on, I became me again. And that's what you used to see me transform. You would say, my mom she'd walk in and then she'd go to the bathroom, take a shower and come back. And it was like a different person.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has ever been around construction sites, around construction workers, my mother, I mean, she was coming home covered in concrete, asphalt, dirt. I mean, just filthy from toe to head and exhausted from, powerful, like work, physical labor and in the elements outside in the winter, in the summer, cold, the heat, the rain, all of these things. And that's what I had seen as my mother. And then you were reading these books and you were changing your language and things like that. And the next thing I know, you transformed into this real estate woman in this this baby blue pantsuit with nails and lipstick. And I was like, oh, and I mean, for me, that truly, it changed my idea of what it was to be a woman. And I mean, at that time, I was going through puberty. I was, starting my cycle and learning what it was to be a woman and all of those things. So I had obviously a lot of confusion, like so much, just like, what is happening? Like, who am I? What am I? Like, what is my mother? Like, I didn't, and it's just wild to now understand, to now be able to look back and see clearly, to watch my life almost like a movie and to think, oh, and that's what the memoir writing has given me, because I literally have written the story and then, I mean, it's not just these swirling thoughts in your head and these memories that just flip around. Like, I've done the research and I've written it into perfect sentences that have brought forth so much incredible clarity that now I can move forward with confidence. Now I know who I am. I know where I came from. I understand what happened and why. And now I feel set up. Now I'm grateful rather than resentful, because I used to, but it's wild to me to think now that it all started with Awaken the Giant Within, and
big plug for Tony Robbins.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just going to send this to him. But I mean, it's amazing story, this life, right? I mean, we all have our own story, and each one of ours, even though they can be so similar, they're also just different enough to be like wildly interesting and capable of, sharing lessons that are profound and deep and worthy. And when you do this work, when you take this time, when you make these steps, you go from the cave to the light. Yes. And that in itself, it's beautiful.
And it we always want to make sure everybody understands that there's always going to be challenges, and you're always going to have things that you got to work through, and there's going to be decisions to make, and you're not always going to know which way to turn. Should I do this? Should I do that? And there's always the thing of the working mother, you're never going to be able to give 100% to your job, and you're never going to be able to give 100% to your children. There's a yin and a yang, and that's never going to change. But the one thing that highly Stephen Covey said is, what your children need more than anything, and I took it straight to the heart, was for you to really be present with them and really talk to them at least 10 or 15 minutes a day. And really, that right there makes them feel seen and heard, because they've got their own lives. They want to do this. They want to run off and do that. They really don't want you up in their face all that much.
That's amazing how much 10 to 15 minutes. It's like, that's a lot.
That's, well, and most people, they'll be with them. They'll be a stay-at-home mom, but they'll be up in their head, and they won't do that. And they'll be there all day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's part of my story, I was physically there, but not mentally there.
Right. And I'm not saying I did that every day, but I tried. I tried very hard. So.
Well, I think I turned out all right, Mama.
I think so.
I think you did a good job.
I think both of my children turned out pretty damn good.
And I think it is it's a big thing for you and I to sit here right now just like this and talk about this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That just in itself is like, you have come to me and you have said, these were my mistakes. These are, this is what I regret. This is what I wish I would have done differently. This is how I see things. And just having that, where you have love yourself enough and love me enough to show up and say, I love you and I'm sorry that I messed these things up as I was learning and growing. Mm-hmm. We're all doing the best we can with what we have. And you were able to come to me and say that. And now we're able to have an open conversation about all of it with so much love. And that is so beautiful and gives me so much hope, because now I'm doing the same with my kids. My son just turned 17 yesterday, and I didn't do it yesterday, but over the last couple years, I have been sitting with him, and I have been looking in his eyes and talking to him and telling him and my girls, I know that me leaving was so hard on you. And I know that it has impacted you in more ways than I probably understand right now. But I hope you know that I love you and that I never meant to hurt you. And I have always just wanted to be the best mother that I could. And that I was the one that felt like a failure. It was never you, and just having that conversation and creating a bond because of it. Because I am able to, instead of living in my fear, just choose the love over and over and over again. And that's what it is. Choosing the love instead of the fear over and over and over again. And that means having hard conversations. That means saying you're sorry when it's really hard, and not hard because it's hard to say sorry, but hard because that means you have to own up.
Yeah, you got to take responsibility for your mistakes, and you've got to say them out loud.
And say them out loud.
To do, and it's not fun, but that's the only way you get past it.
Yeah, really. And it leads to it leads to beautiful growth.
I mean,
And
none of that was ever okay, and it will never be okay. But, it has to you have to pivot sometime and
I
start
don't know.
if you
I've
can't live in
become
the past.
I have become so incredibly grateful for every single lesson, every single trial and tribulation, even the really, really, really hard stuff. I mean, there's still some things for sure that
Yeah.
like it's gonna pain me forever. I mean, it's always, but
Mhm.
I'm grateful
Yeah.
because I learned. And that's the difference, right? Is we choose to learn rather than repeat. And, so I think we're coming to a close here.
Yes.
This has been a wonderful conversation, and one that I really truly do believe is so, I keep using the word powerful, but it is just a powerful story, a powerful lesson, a powerful message. And if you are looking to learn more about the Empowered Path, visit my website at jessafrancis.net or reach out to me directly. I am always open to speaking with you, and because that's what it is. That's what the Empowered Path is. It is connection. So connect with me, and let's see what would work well for you. And yeah, join us for next month. Really excited. Actually, the Empowered Book Club starting June 1st is going to be reading this one, Mind Magic, the Neuroscience of Manifestation and How It Changes Everything, by Dr. James R. Doty. It's a New York Times bestselling book, and I have already started digging in because I want to facilitate and I want to guide people through this book, right? So we're going to be workshopping it. We're going to, at the end of the chapters, he has practices, and we're going to do those practices together. And, that kind of thing is just really exciting to me, because not only does it help it really settle in, but then you're not just zooming through the book. You are actually finally doing the work. You're actually doing the practices rather than just thinking them through in your head. It makes a huge difference, right? So if you're interested, join us for the June book club, Mind Magic, and reach out to me. Thank you all for being here with us today. Thank you to my beautiful mother, Desi, who is an artist, and I want you to visit her website, which I will leave in the show notes, so that you can see all of the amazing artwork that she is creating. She has a studio in Louisville, Kentucky. She is an abstract impressionist. She does like this incredibly beautiful abstract art of all different shapes and sizes. She's in a art gallery in Louisville.
Pyro Gallery.
Pyro Gallery. So if anybody is in Louisville and you love art, definitely check out Desi. And like I said, I'll leave all of her information in the show notes so that you can see for yourself how this ex-construction worker has embraced herself fully as the beautiful artist that she has always been. Our house growing up was always filled with incredible artwork all over, because she's always painted and drawn, and now I'm an artist as well, and that has rolled down the hill. And so beautiful artwork, and I definitely recommend purchasing a piece for your home, because it will light it up and transform it into an even more beautiful space. But thank you all for being here with me, Jessa Francis, on the Empowered Path podcast. I will see you next week. Talk to you soon.